Sorry, I apologize. I meant to record this. So I'm talking about absences right now. So I have tremendous respect for City College students. You guys often are working 1 or 2 jobs or you are caregivers. You have a lot going on in your lives. So I know that stuff comes up. I've been teaching at City College for a long time and I completely understand. So if you communicate with me, I can work with you. I can help deal with the absences that happen in your life, okay? But you need to communicate with me. You do not need to give me personal details. You can just say that I have circumstances beyond my control right now that I'm dealing with, and I will work with you. I can extend deadlines and do things like that, okay? But you need to communicate with me. So my office hours are Tuesdays, 1:30 to 3:30. There's a Zoom link for it, okay? Or by appointment. I realize not everybody's going to be able to come in at 1:30 to 3:30. You can make an appointment. You can shoot me an email. The only questions, the only stupid questions are the ones that you don't ask, okay? And I really seriously believe that, all right? I'm going to show you all these online materials right now. For this class, there are 2 midterms, an article analysis, which I'll explain to you, a final, and quizzes, okay? Truthfully, there are 3 midterms. There's not a final that reaches back and covers the entire course. So I present material, I test you on it. I present material, I test you on it. I present material, I test you on it. If in the final I want to bring something into the class from earlier in the class, I'll tell you. Okay, but typically they're essentially 3 midterms. And the exams may consist of slide IDs, multiple choice, short answer, etc. The quizzes are to prepare you for the exams. The quizzes are to show you what exam questions will look like. So I will give you multiple choice, matching, short answer, whatever. I will give you those types of questions on the quiz so you know, A, what you should be studying, and B, what the exam questions will look like. The article analysis is due on Canvas by 11:59 p.m. on Monday, March 14th. Okay, it's January. I'm telling you it's due on Monday, March 14th. I expect to receive them by then. Okay. It is important that you get an agenda, put it in your phone, get a whiteboard, whatever works for you. You need something to keep track of the due dates for this class and your other classes, okay? I get really cranky when I get the email that said, I didn't there was like a midterm like yesterday, okay? I get really cranky. So, and I'll give you warnings. Oh, that's the other thing. Check your pipeline email. Check your pipeline email. Check your pipeline email. That is how I will communicate with you. That was how I will remind you of things. Okay. Okay, grading is based on the 2 midterms. The first midterm's only worth 100 points. That's so you can jump into the shallow end before you jump into the deep end. So it just makes it a little less pressure on the first midterm. The first midterm looked just, it's going to be exactly the same in terms of formatting as the second midterm and the quote unquote final, but it's just so you don't feel as much pressure. It's not worth as many points. Second midterm's worth 200 points. The final, or AKA third midterm, is worth 200 points. The article analysis is worth 200 points. And I put quizzes and class participation are worth 100 points. So that was back when we were going to be meeting face to face. So I might put in some little assignment in some of the different weeks when we're here online for you to do online to give you that participation grade, but it will show up in your weekly assignments. It'll be some little easy something for you to do, okay? I use plus minus grading. Course grades are not open to negotiation. My favorite line from the movie Clueless. I will regrade them if there are numerical or clerical errors, which has never happened. And then I may do, there is extra credit. So I should need to change that. Actually, the extra credit now is going to be on the exams. I will give you the opportunity to do extra credit on the exams. I need to change that, okay? Your textbook is Rosenblum's A World History of Photography, the 4th edition. Okay, the 4th edition. All right. You are expected to adhere to the current SBC standards of student conduct. That's my way of saying no cheating, please. All right. When I give you the exams, and I'll explain it to you, you're going to take them on Canvas. You're going to take them independently. So it's the honor system that you don't have your book and your notes open next to you. All right. So if you are a DSPS student, and I have received some accommodation letters already, thank you very much. If you're a DSPS student, you will definitely receive your accommodation to the best of my ability. And of course, feel free to communicate with me if I can help you in some specific way. If you think you might need an accommodation for this or one of your other courses, I strongly suggest you reach out to DSPS. I completely admit that my younger daughter did not know until her freshman year of college that she needed a specific accommodation. It's not my area of expertise. I didn't know about it. She didn't really realize it until her freshman year. So if you think there might be something that DSPS can help you with, call them, talk to them, okay? Because it can be a very helpful program. All right, so this is our course schedule. And so I put in here, obviously today, the reason it says January 16th is that's Sunday. That's the start of week 1, okay? So we're obviously doing the course introduction, and I'm going to show you the invention of photography today. And there is a quiz this week. It's not worth any points. It's just a chance for you to get an introduction to what the quizzes look like. And then the reading here is chapter 1 in your textbook. As you go through, there are some places where I give you specific pages to read, okay? Your textbook is encyclopedic. It's really good, but there's a lot of information in it. So you may wish to listen, watch the lecture, then do the reading to supplement what we talk about in lecture. However you want to do it is completely up to you, okay? And then there is a textbook on reserve in the library at City College if you prefer to use that one. If you are, adjacent to campus, you can use that one, okay? So we go through. So I would like you to note that our first midterm is Wednesday, February 23rd. So who can tell me what is significant about Wednesday, February 23rd? Anybody? That's the first day you guys come back. As of right now, that's the first day you guys come back to campus. Okay. So, I mean, I didn't plan it this way. I made the syllabus back when we were supposed to be face-to-face. That's just the way it fell. So you will come back to campus on Wednesday, February 23rd, as of right now, and you will take that midterm, okay? So, and I will give you more information about that going forward. So just FYI on that, okay? And then we go down, and then we have that week of March 13th, Monday, March 14th is the last day to submit your article analysis, and you can submit that on Canvas. All right, I'll explain more about that. And then you'll see in each of the lectures, I put the photographers that we're going to talk about and or the subjects we're going to talk about. We have spring break here. And then unfortunately, and again, this is just the way it fell, which is annoying, we come back from spring break and then have a midterm. And again, that's just the way, unfortunately, because of the way things fell, that's what happened, okay? And I'll give you lots of reminders about that. But you'll have had the first midterm, you'll sort of see what it feels like, all right? And then we come down, and right now I put tentatively, I don't know if they've yet published the adjusted final exam schedule. I think that is when the final exam is going to be, but I will double check that because they had to do a new final exam schedule when they pushed us out a week. But I believe that's when our final exam is going to be, okay? So this is your article analysis assignment. all right? So the purpose of the article analysis assignment is to get you to carefully read an article. This is something I had to do in graduate school. I found it very useful, so I'm passing it on to you. So I'm going to put probably 3 articles on Canvas in our under important course information, all right? And I want you to pick one of those. And then I'm going to have you use this handout that I'll show you in a minute to analyze the article. The first thing that you're going to do is tell me the problem or question the author is concerned with in that article. Then you're going to use that handout to analyze the article. And I'm going to show you a sample in just a minute. Okay. So your response should be a minimum of 4 full double-spaced 12-point font typewritten pages, about 1,000 words. Okay, why do I say that? Because I had a student who submitted essentially a newspaper column. She submitted 4 pages, but her margins were so wide, it was like a strip down the middle. Okay, so that's what all that's about. All right. So I will explain that to you. Again, it needs to be submitted on Canvas by Monday, March 14th at 11:59 p.m. Course hints. I really do want you to enjoy this course. I have my PhD in the history of photography. My area of emphasis is the history of photography. It's my passion. All right. That being said, I realize we're not curing cancer here. Okay. I mean, it's my passion. I wrote a book pertaining to the history of photography, but I want you to enjoy it. Okay. And I want you to succeed. So I strongly suggest you take good lecture notes. And then it says make flashcards containing the relevant information for each study guide. I'm going to explain that to you in a few minutes. Don't hesitate to meet with me to clarify any questions you have about your notes, your flashcards, the article analysis, etc. You can, as you're getting ready to study for the midterm, you can say, hey, these are the things I'm going to study for each of the study guide images. Am I on track? You can shoot me an email and I'll tell you. Later on, you can meet with me on campus and you can show me your flashcards. You can give me a draft of your article analysis. I need it a week before they're due, not a couple days before they're due, a week before they're due. And I will glance through it and tell you if you're on the right track, etc. And then again, communicate with me if there's something happening. And again, you don't have to give me specifics if there's something impacting your attendance or performance in the class. Okay. All right. So, and there's comics there for you because I love comics. Okay. So these are your study guide images for the class. So I didn't put the rotated ones up. I apologize. I will fix this. Sorry. I can rotate these and repost them. I thought I'd done that. So anyway, so the story with this is you're going to see a lot of images in the lectures. So the ones that you see here, the study guide images, are the only ones I will test you on in the exam. The only ones I will test you on in the exam. So out of all the ones that you see, you know, the only ones that you see, all the ones that you see in lectures, these are the ones I'm going to test you on. So what a lot of people do is print these out and on the back of them, write down the specific information that I give you in lecture about these particular images, okay? Because those are the ones I'm going to test you on. So you don't need to know, this is the plate number in your book, number 6, you don't need to know that. You need to know the last name of the artist, if it's given, and the date. And then any information I give you in lecture. So I might ask you a slide identification question. I might put that image up and say, is that image by A. Niepce, B. Daguerre, C. Talbot, etc. I may ask you to be able to identify in a multiple choice question the date of that image. Is that dated, you know, A circa 1827, B circa 1921, et cetera, et cetera. Or I may ask you a question pertaining to what we discussed in lecture, okay? So again, these are the only images out of everything that you see in the lectures for the first midterm exam that I will test you on, okay? So let's pull down through here. Okay, so the article analysis assignment, this is basically what I just told you. This reiterates that paragraph that's on your syllabus. So this is the handout that, oops, sorry, that's not it. Let's see if we can find the handout. This is the handout, sorry, I got them out of order. All right, so this is the handout that I want you to use. So you're going to read your article. You're going to begin by defining the problem or question the author is concerned with. 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences, okay? Then under author's purpose, evidence, argumentation, and background knowledge and received opinion, you are going to pick 2 prompts under each of these sections. So 8 prompts total. You're going to pick 2 prompts under each of these. You're going to write author's purpose, and then you're going to type a prompt and answer the prompt. Type a prompt and answer the prompt. So let's go back here. This is, I put this here. This one is here. This is actually from my Asian art class. I put this here so you can see the formatting. This is a beautifully formatted article analysis. So she's got her name, etc., the article she's chosen. She begins by defining the problem or question the author is concerned with. She says author's purpose. She selected her prompt. She gives her response. Her second prompt, her response. Evidence, her prompt, her response. Her prompt, her response, etc., etc. It's that simple. I don't want an essay. I don't want it all flowing together, because then I get to try and hunt for the prompt that you're answering, okay? Which, I mean, it's to make it easier for you, and it's to make it easier for me, okay? So literally, it's that straightforward. So I'm looking for careful reading. I'm looking for thoughtful responses. It's not so much are there right or wrong answers, but did you read the article carefully? Okay. And then one more thing I want to discuss on this very quickly is, what is this? Oh, I don't know why this is in a different format. Okay. I don't know. I got to check this. I don't know. Who knows what I did? Okay. Under background knowledge and received opinion. So the question is, what is background knowledge? Background knowledge is what you, the reader, bring to reading the article. It is not what the author tells you. It's what you, the reader, bring to reading the the article. Okay. So let's see, what's a good example? Okay, so suppose the article is about the photographer Talbot and his, what's a good, it's all about his publication, The Pencil of Nature. And it's going on and on and on about the pencil of nature. But the author never mentions what the pencil of nature is. The background knowledge that you would need to understand that article is, what is the pencil of nature? Okay, it's something you, the reader, would have to bring to that article. Okay. So that's background knowledge. So, and people get confused on that in their article analysis. So background knowledge is what you, the reader, bring, not what the author provides for you, okay? And then there's a prompt here. Is there background information or knowledge received, if not certain? So received information is things we all generally agree on, okay? What's something we all generally agree on? The sky is blue, the earth is round, that kind of thing, okay? Certain knowledge is things that have been really scientifically proven. So like water is composed of H2O, things like that, okay? But received information is things we all generally agree upon. And again, certain is things that are scientifically or absolutely proven, just to clarify those 2 points, okay? All right, I hope that's helpful. Again, as you get closer to this, if you have any questions about this, email me, come to my office hours, set up another Zoom meeting with me, and we can work on it, okay? All right. So I don't know why the formatting on this is changing, but then again, this is as a sample article analysis, again, mainly for formatting purposes. So you can see what good formatting is looking like. Okay. This finally, last one, this is the grading rubric. This is literally what I will use to grade your article analysis. I will print one of these out for each of you, and I will see, is your text a minimum of 4 full typewritten pages, double-spaced, 12-point font? If not, I can deduct up to 10 points. Did you define the problem or question the author is concerned with very clearly? Did you do at least 2 prompts under author's purpose? And did you thoroughly address them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. Was each prompt being addressed typed out in full with your response beneath it? Is your analysis well organized and clearly presented? Does your analysis have proper spelling, grammar, punctuation, et cetera? And then, oh, look, was it submitted by the deadline? How many points can I deduct? 200. How many is it worth? 200. We best get it in on time. Okay. All right. But if there are extenuating circumstances, all right, reach out to me, contact me. Okay. November 8th. What the heck? All right. I have some cleaning up. You know what? I know what's going on here. Look, see what happened? It jumped into a different, we're not in the right course. That's what's going on. That's why everything looks so wonky. I don't know what happened. It jumped to a different shell. It did this to me in the other class too. So if we go here, it's going to be correct. I don't know why it did that. It did that the other day too. So if we go here, yeah, see, now it's correct. So the information in your course shell is correct. So let's go back to modules mode. I don't know why it did that. So anyway, I will post the articles right in through here. When I select the articles for your article analysis, I'm going to post them right in through here. Okay. So then again, like I said, the reason this says January 16th is that's Sunday. That's the start of the week. So every week, and I think it posts, I can't remember. You think I'd know by now. I can't remember if it posts on Monday at 12:01 a.m. I think it posts on Monday at 12:01 a.m. The week opens. So you will see the reading assignment and the quiz will be available. All right. I mean, obviously, you probably want to attend the Monday lecture and the Wednesday lecture and then do the quiz. Again, it's your choice when you do the reading assignment. You may want to do it after you attend both of the lectures. It's sort of your call. All right. So let's peek at the quiz, see what that looks like. All right. Now, I need you to know I will always give you, let's go back there for 1 second. And this, I'm in instructor mode right now. I will always give you 2 or 3 attempts to take the quiz because I want you to get 100%. Okay. You will always get 2 or 3 attempts to take the quiz. So if you don't get 100% the first time, take it again. Okay. So this is what they look like. All right. And this particular quiz has to do with what we're discussing today. All right. So I'm just going to randomly click on some of these. Just randomly click on some of them. And then you submit it. And it will give you the correct answers. Okay. It will give you the correct answers. And so if you want to take it again, you can. You can definitely do that. Okay. Like I said, I will always give you 2 or 3 attempts to take the quiz because I want you to get 100%. I want you to learn from the quiz. I want you to learn the formatting of what like I said, the exams will look like from the quiz. Okay. So that is pretty much, the weeks are pretty much going to look like this. Like I said, I may add a little something on some of the weeks while we're doing this online, just to give you some participation points. When we get into face-to-face classes, when I say participation points, you don't necessarily have to speak and lecture. I know some of you are not comfortable doing that. I'm really sort of looking for you to turn up and be in class, okay? So don't get concerned. Don't feel like you're going to have to vocalize in class, because I know for some of you, that's a very uncomfortable thing to do, all right? It's more like being there. Okay, any questions about any of that? And again, I'm recording this and I'm going to post it right here. When the recording's done, I'll post a little YouTube video right there of everything I've talked about, so you can go back and review it, okay? All right, so let's go in and let's do a lecture so you can see what a lecture looks like, all right? So this is a PowerPoint slideshow. Now, the school has asked us to, I'm going to minimize, I'm going to hide that. Okay, the school has asked us to really not post lectures, you know, if we're doing face-to-face classes. Okay, so you need to attend the lecture. If something comes up, obviously communicate with me. We'll just leave it at that. Okay, so this is lecture 2 because lecture 1 is the intro. So today we're going to talk about the invention of photography. And then at the beginning of every lecture, I will give you this. I will give you terms to know. And so I have camera obscura, Niepce, and under Niepce I have heliograph. Under Daguerre, I have daguerreotype, and under Talbot, I have Talbot-type or calotype. So at the beginning of every lecture, I'll give you the terms / people or information that I specifically want you to pull out, okay? So those things will always be there. So I'll give you sort of a moment to note that. And obviously, I'm going to reiterate these in the lecture, okay? And there are study guide images that pertain to definitely Niepce, Daguerre, and Talbot. I can't remember. I don't think there's a camera obscura study guide image, but I will reference that term, okay? Okay. All right. So the question is, how did photography get developed? Well, there was a time period before photography. And one of the frustrations that people had was they wanted to be able to render the natural world on paper or canvas or whatever naturalistically. Okay.
Excuse me, Professor, are we supposed to be seeing like a slideshow?
Are you not seeing it?
No,
Yeah,
we're
no,
still seeing the Canvas page.
Oh,
Yeah, we're not
no.
seeing it in here right now.
Oh, no. Okay, what's going on? Why is this not working? Oh, boy. Why is this not working? Okay, hold on. New share? Oh, duh. Okay. How about now?
Yeah, we can see it
Yes.
now.
Oh, thank you. See, thank you, guys. Okay. All right. Now, can you see that? Can you see the terms?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me give you a minute with those. Thank you. I'm going to rely on you guys to tell me stuff like that. I had to do a second screen share, and I'm not sure why that was the case.
For some reason, I'm not able to see it. I don't know why. I wonder if it has to do with the view that I'm looking at. Oh, okay, I can see it now.
You got it? It's great.
Yes,
Does
thank you.
everybody see it? Anybody having any issues? Tell me. I want to know. We good? Okay, please tell me if you have issues like that. I just saw that. I just checked the chat and I saw there were some frozen screens and stuff. So. Okay. So everybody got the terms?
Yes.
Okay.
Quick
Okay.
question.
Yes.
I just want to, do we get access to these slideshows or is it just a one-time thing? Like,
I will put the slide, I will put the slides up. I will
Okay.
put the slides up, definitely, yeah. I just won't put the recorded lecture up. But
Okay.
yes, I will absolutely put the PDF of the slides up.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, that, yeah, totally fair. Okay. Why are we not? What's going on? What's going on? Why will it not advance? There we go. Okay. So like I said, even though you couldn't see, so there was this frustration with not being able to render like on paper or canvas the natural world highly naturalistically. FYI, we used to say realistically, but then the philosophers said, but what is real? So we started saying naturalistically. So they came up with the devices like this. So there was this frame, this little device here, and this eyepiece fits into the frame here. And then this thing holds a piece of paper, and the artist would look through the eyepiece and then render onto the piece of fairly translucent paper whatever the scene was in front of them. And what that did is gave them proper perspective when rendering whatever was in front of them. So note the date on this, 1308 to 11. This is Duccio. So if you look at this carefully, it looks like, can you guys see my pointer? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like the book could slide off the lectern there, right? It looks like she's about to slide off the bench she's sitting on. How is it that the angel's foot is behind this post, but the arm's sort of coming forward? In short, the three-dimensionality of this is off. Okay, it doesn't have proper perspective. And that was because they just hadn't quite figured out, FYI, the Romans had figured out, we lost it, it was refound in the Renaissance, but they couldn't quite figure out how to render proper, what we call one-point perspective. So normally all the orthogonals, all these lines should have gone to a single point, but they couldn't quite figure out how to do that. So Canaletto used that device. He used, let me see if I can remember how to do this. Oh, I can't figure out how to do it. He used that device I showed you at the very beginning with that little eyepiece. So that if you look at something like this, all the lines in this work, excuse me, this thing is going to start. All the lines in this work, okay, why is it doing that? All the lines in this work go, all the lines go to a single vanishing point. Like if you follow all the specific lines, they go to a single vanishing point like there. It has proper one-point perspective. And we think he used one of those devices that I showed you with that frame and that little eyepiece to do that. But that's a painting, okay? People wanted to have naturalistic renderings of the real world. So another thing they came up with was this, what they called silhouette machine. So again, you have a piece of what we would call tracing paper. You have a light source over here, obviously a candle. And what he did is tracing her profile. And this was a time period where they really believed that a person's profile said a great deal about their character. And so you would either just have the profile like that, a silhouette. And it's interesting because they used to make these on Main Street in Disneyland as a sort of an old-fashioned type thing. I don't know if they still do. And then Gilles Louis Chrétien. And again, because these aren't your study guide images, you can take light notes on these if you want to, but what you really want to dial into, and I promise I will slow down when we get to your actual study guide images, because I realize I'm kind of clipping along here, okay? So anyway, so what Gilles Louis Chrétien did was he traced a profile, and then drew in the person's facial features. So you had that high naturalism of that exact profile from that silhouette process. And then the artist coming in and trying to very naturalistically putting in the eyes, nose, mouth, hair, etc. But again, these are all attempts at putting something extremely naturalistically on paper or canvas. And there's a physiotrace of Thomas Jefferson. And that's actually was made into an etching. But again, there's just this desire to record the natural world as naturalistically as possible. Then we have the camera obscura, and this is a term I would like you to know. So camera means room, obscura means dark. So literally darkened room. We know that 11th century Arab astronomers, we have records that they were among the first to figure this out. And this is a natural phenomenon. So if you literally have a darkened room and you make a small hole or aperture in one wall, whatever is outside will appear on the opposite wall upside down. So literally the light will come in through that little hole. It doesn't even really need to have a lens or anything in it, just a small hole. Whatever is outside will come in and be projected upside down on the opposite wall. And the reason we know about this is those 11th century Arab astronomers used this to watch solar eclipses. They knew enough not to look directly at the sun, so they would use these to watch eclipses. So here's another example where someone has constructed a box, put a small hole in it, and then has placed paper on this wall and then is tracing this view opposite. So again, trying to get a naturalistic rendering of this landscape, I guess cityscape, there's some buildings there, tracing it on there, then we'll take it into a studio and then flush it out with paint or whatever. So these actually became rather popular. So this was one, I think it's still there in San Francisco. There's one at the University of California, not Irvine, Riverside. UC Riverside has one. There are some around that you can go visit, but this was a really popular one in San Francisco. And so what happens is the light comes in through here. Now this one happens to have a mirror so that what is outside is projected down onto a disc right there. So this one functions slightly differently because there's a mirror in it. But that's what, so this is this family looking at in that actual one in San Francisco. So that's the oceanscape outside being projected down onto that disc shape. But again, this is, I mean, that's literally what a camera obscura does. And then a current photographer, Morel, he actually does camera obscura images. So what he does is he goes to different hotel rooms in different cities. He purposely picks a hotel room that faces an interesting subject. And then what he'll do is he'll put black paper on the window, make a tiny little hole in one, in that black paper, so that what is opposite him is projected on the opposite wall upside down. He then photographs what is projected on the opposite wall. So what you're seeing is a photograph of his camera obscura projection. So then he displays his photograph of his camera obscura projection. So these are different examples. That's taken in Rome. So you can see it's upside down on the opposite wall. So then they started making portable camera obscuras. So now this one actually has a little lens. There's a mirror here, and the sheet of tracing paper is placed right there. So the artist could point it at something and then trace whatever was being seen and then fill it in with pigment or pastels or whatever. Then there was a little thing called a camera lucida that was devised. It's basically the same idea as the camera obscura. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It basically, there's a lens system in through here so that it's pointed at what the artist wants to draw, but it's projected down onto the piece of paper there. And I got to try one of those one time, and it really was kind of amazing because I cannot draw to save my life. And I was able to, point it at a person and sort of do a little tracing of what I saw. So it really was a benefit in helping me, quote unquote, draw, because basically what I was tracing was what I saw opposite me. So then we have this gentleman, Sir John Herschel, and you may know his name. He was actually also a famous astronomer. So he did this as his camera lucida drawing of the Temple of Juno in Sicily. So this was something that was popular that people were using, and we're going to see Herschel again. Okay, so this is where chemistry starts to be involved. So we've really been talking about optics up until this point. Now chemistry comes into the picture, pun intended. So this is John Heinrich Schultz, and he did this masking experiment. So if any of you guys have silver jewelry, you know that over time it oxidizes, it sort of darkens, gets that sort of black oxidation on it, and you have to sort of polish it with a rouge cloth or with silver polish to get that bright silver back to it. So basically what Herschel did is he took a milk bottle and he put a silver solution in it. Then he cut a mask, almost kind of like a koozie, and he put it over the bottle with a cutout on it, and he put the bottle out in the sun. So where the light hit the bottle, the silver solution darkened. Where the light did not hit the bottle, the silver solution did not darken. So long story short, he figured out that you could make the silver solution darken with exposure to light. The only problem was, as soon as you take the mask off the bottle, put it out in the sun, the whole thing turns dark. But chemistry, silver solution darkens in the sun. So this is an important step.
Question.
Yes.
For how long did he have to leave that out? Do you know, for it to turn dark?
That's a really good question. I don't. That's a really good question. I do not. And thank you for jumping in and asking a question. And I meant to say that. You do not ever hesitate to just jump in and ask a question. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
No, seriously. It probably depends on the amount of silver in the solution, how bright the sun is, yada, 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 but it's a very good question. So then Thomas Wedgwood, and if you guys have ever heard of Wedgwood pottery, famous pottery line, he took a silver solution, put it on these pieces of leather, and then laid leaves on top of the pieces of leather, laid them outside. And then again, where the light did not strike the leather darkened, the silver solution darkened. Where the light was blocked, the silver solution did not darken. Okay, so he's same kind of idea. He's fiddling with it, all right? But we're still not able to stop the darkening process. So I'm just saying people are fiddling with this, okay? All right, now I did put this in green, that number in green, as a way to clue that this is one of your study guide images. Okay, this is one of your study guide images. All right. So what happened was this gentleman, Niepce, he was aware of this idea of silver solution darkening. He, heard buzz about it. Okay. So Niepce took a metal plate. He put a silver solution in something they called bitumen. We call it asphalt. Okay, and bitumen is B-I-T-U-M-A-N. B-I-T-U-M-A-N. Don't worry about it. We think of it as asphalt, okay, like a tarry kind of solution. So he covers this metal plate in the silver solution mixed with bitumen. He put it in a little camera obscura, a small one. He put that metal plate in there, and then he pointed that camera obscura out the window of his studio onto his rooftop. And this thing, so this whole thing is the rooftop outside his studio. This is a chicken coop, I believe. Okay. So he points it out there. All right. Long story short, what happened was where the light hit the metal plate the most, the bitumen hardened. Where it hit it the least, the bitumen remained soft. Okay. I won't go through the whole chemistry. The book talks about it, but don't worry about it. Long story short, he made, and this is really important, he made an inkable plate, because what he ended up doing was he sloughed off the softer bitumen and he retained the harder bitumen. So you basically had this metal plate with some raised areas on it, and that he used as an inkable plate. Okay, so this is not what we think of as a photograph. This is what we think of as an inkable plate. He called it a heliograph. Helio means sun. Graph means drawing. So he's calling it a sun drawing, or drawing with the sun. Heliograph, but it was, by our definition, an inkable plate. Okay. So, and if we were face to face, this would be a whole lot easier, because I torture my students when we're face to face. We have this discussion about this. There's something really funky about this image. So I'm just going to ask it really quickly. And if anybody wants to jump in, I'll give you a minute. Where's the sun coming from in this image? Where is the sun positioned in this image?
It looks like top left.
Okay, so top left over here. So if it's over here, if the sun is shining this way here, because certainly this area is very bright, this area is very bright, but how is this surface there bright like that?
A reflection, maybe?
Oh, good point. I'm teasing, I'm being mean. It was an 8-hour exposure. So what actually happened is the sun tracked all the way across in the course of 8 hours. So to get that plate to harden, so this, I do know the exposure time. So it was an 8-hour exposure. He left it in the window for 8 hours. And that's how he got part of that plate to harden, etc. So we know that it was an 8. So that's why as the sun tracked across, obviously it's hitting here and here. But then as the sun comes over to this part, we see it hitting over here as well. So it was an 8-hour exposure. Okay. So Niepce, he puts a metal plate, silver solution, and like an asphalt-like substance in a camera obscura in his window, 8 hours, makes an inkable plate or a heliograph. Okay. And sometimes, and I don't know if it helps you or not, sometimes when I talk about the study guide images, especially in the earlier part of the course, I'll break it down to technical, social, historical, and aesthetic. So technically, it's a heliograph. It's an inkable plate. Socially, historically, this is a combination of the camera obscura and chemistry. So it's a combination socially, historically. So socially, historically. It's the combination of the camera obscura and chemistry. And then aesthetically, it was an 8-hour exposure. And if that, sometimes having those categories sort of helps people organize it. So those might be the kind of things you would flip over and write on the back of the study guide image, for example. Okay. All right. Enter the picture, one of my favorite names in the history of photography, or any history of art, Louis-Jacques de Daguerre. All right. So Daguerre had something in Paris called a diorama. All right. Now, 1836, no television, no motion pictures. Okay. So what he would do was he had this large space with, think of it as sort of bleachers in them. People would come sit down the bleachers, and in front of them would be these giant paintings. And what would happen was he would change the lighting on these paintings, and he had an orchestra, and the light would change and the orchestra would play, and he would sort of make these dramatic events of viewing these paintings, if you will. Okay. So it made the whole experience sort of an auditory and visual feast. So what Daguerre wanted was amazing images for his diorama. That was what Daguerre wanted. Daguerre was a businessman, and he wanted amazing images for his diorama, preferably, and if he could get, really naturalistic ones of famous places, all the better. So he gets word about a fellow Frenchman, Niepce, doing this combination of chemistry and camera obscura. And he's like, whoa, hey, let's get together. Let's talk about this. So Daguerre hooks up with Niepce, gets information from Niepce, and does this. And this is one of your study guide images. Okay. So this is usually considered the first photograph. It's actually not the first photograph in time. It's the first one announced to the world as a photograph, as a photographic image. Okay. So technically, Daguerre gets information from Niepce. He gets the information of camera obscura and chemistry together. All right. Now he tweaks that. He tweaks it a little bit. Long story short, Daguerre takes a metal plate, and you don't really need to know all the specifics of this, but I'm just going to tell you. He takes just a basic metal plate. He coats it with silver and highly, 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 highly polishes it. It's almost mirror-like. All right. Then he dips it in a silver solution and puts it in his camera obscura. He positioned it in his window and points it towards this Parisian boulevard. He exposes it towards the Parisian boulevard. He then takes that metal plate out, and get this, among other things, he fumes it in mercury vapors. And I don't know if you know, but that is extremely toxic. Okay. So he fumes it in mercury vapors. But what happens is, and what I need you to know is, what happens on that metal plate, an image appears. So those of you that do photography, what's missing? Do you know? There's no negative. There's no negative. So he takes a metal plate, coats it with silver, polishes it, sensitizes it, puts it in the camera obscura, exposes it, develops that metal plate, and an image appears. and you get an image on that metal plate. So every time you want what he called a daguerreotype, you have to repeat that entire process because there is no negative. There is no negative. Okay. Every time you want one, you got to do the whole thing over again. So technically, he's going to call it a daguerreotype. Names it after himself. There is no negative. It's what we call a direct positive. Just know there is no negative. So every time you want a daguerreotype, you have to repeat the process and you get a single image on a metal plate like that. Okay. So what's interesting is, as you look at this image, and this is a Parisian boulevard. And interestingly enough, you don't see any people and you don't see any carriages. And that is because it was a 20-minute exposure. And this was probably through trial and error on his part. It was a 20-minute exposure. So there probably were people and carriages and things, but they didn't appear on the plate. They were moving, except for one person right here. And a lot of art historians debate and argue about this. Some say, well, Daguerre had the gentleman go down there and stand. And then when he thought the exposure was done, he like waved his handkerchief from the window so the man could move. Other people said, no, the guy was standing there for 20 minutes. And other people like, well, why the heck would a guy stand there for 20 minutes? On and on and on. Anyway, so there is one individual in the daguerreotype, okay? But all the others moved enough during the image that they don't appear. If you look at this image in your textbook and look very carefully at the tops of the trees, they're slightly blurry because you can see the wind move them during the course of that 20-minute exposure, okay? The reason this is called the first photograph is it was the first photographic image announced to the world. Now, Daguerre gave his process to the French people. He just wanted a way to create amazing images for his diorama, okay? So we got ticker tape parades and, you know, key to the city, the whole 9 yards, very, very famous. There's even a monument to Daguerre on the grounds of the National Portrait Gallery and the National Museum of American Art in Washington, D.C. So anyway, let's go back. So technically, it's a daguerreotype. It's a direct positive, meaning there's no negative. Every time you want to make a daguerreotype, you have to go through the entire process over again. Socially, historically, it's considered the first photographic image because it was the first one announced to the world. Aesthetically, it was a 20-minute exposure. So there were people probably moving about the street and carriages moving about the street. They just didn't register except for this one individual. Okay. All right. So that's one of Daguerre's little cameras. Okay, one of his little daguerreotypes. You can see it's really simple. You'll notice here there's no shutter release. There's just a little thing that goes in front of the lens. So you just literally push that away to start the exposure, and then he would, by experimentation, figure out when to close the lens, when to stop the exposure. And then the little plates were put in back in through there. So early daguerreotypes had long exposures. They started out in like the 20-minute range. Over time, they got shorter. Let me see, I don't know if I have my chart with me here. I don't think I have it with me. Over time, they got shorter, but initially they were long. So the early daguerreotypes usually always see people seated, and they have their hands resting on something. And they often sometimes even have a little clamp around their neck so their head doesn't wiggle, okay? And so there's all this talk how, you know, in this time period in history, people were so serious and, they never smiled. Well, try and smile for 20 minutes and see what it looks like, okay? You start to look like Christina Ricci in the Addams Family. It looks creepy, all right? So these early daguerreotypes, people are very serious, their hands are planted, their elbows are in a way that, in a pose that they can maintain for 20 minutes. So you get things like that, very serious, just like I said, a pose you can hold. So to protect that daguerreotype, because again, you've got this metal plate with the silver solution on it, they're very easily scratched. They're very easily damaged. And so they often would come up with these cases, and then they had a frame, and then that's, the daguerreotype, and you put another frame around a piece of glass over it. So you had a way of protecting them, okay? It's interesting, we look at these cases today, and they're called union cases, but you look at these cases today, they look for all the world like plastic. They were actually ground like wood pulp and sort of lacquer mashed together. You rarely saw outdoor scenes in early daguerreotypes. This one's a little bit later. Okay, but you rarely saw outdoor scenes because you had to have all the chemistry close at hand. You had to be able to polish that silver plate and then sensitize it, put it in the camera obscura, and then you had to get it out and fume it, et cetera, et cetera. So short of hauling all that equipment with you, it was difficult to do. So you didn't tend to see a lot of outdoor scenes early on. So this is a little drawing of early daguerreotype equipment and supplies. So again, this is not a time period where you can go someplace and buy the pre-made silver solution. The photographers were having to mix all the chemistry themselves. So, and they had to do, boil things, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a chair, and I want to show you, this has, and you can see it's adjustable. This has a headrest that could be used so the person could lean against that so they wouldn't wiggle during the longer exposure time. And there's just some fun ones. This is in France, the revolt of 1848, and you can see where the peasants have pulled up the cobblestones, even grabbed bits of carriages and things to create barricades in the streets. But again, we don't have people present in that one. This one, do you notice anything unique about this particular one? Now look at the late date on that. By the time we get into the 1850s, the exposure times are considerably shortened. So he's able to hold his arm up like that because it's a much shorter exposure time. But the other thing is, if you look really closely on this, hand coloring has been applied. Daguerreotypes are always going to be that sort of black and white color. Artists would come in and hand color them with very, very delicate brushes. And you had to do it directly on the metal plate, very carefully. Some were done better than others, but you had to hand color each individual daguerreotype, obviously, but sometimes they were hand colored. So there again, if you look very carefully, you can see a little bit of blush has been added to her cheeks as an example. That is beautifully hand colored. I mean, very exquisitely done. There were, well, I'll just say it, there were pornographic. I'm not saying this is, please excuse me. I'm not saying that this is. I'm just telling you as an aside, there were pornographic and erotic daguerreotypes. We do have those. This is what we call a stereoscopic image. And it was taken with a camera obscura that had two lenses, the centers of which were about 2.5 inches apart, which is the distance between the human pupils. And so when put in a viewer, they gave a 3-dimensional effect. And that is a deceased child. And I know that these are difficult to look at from our perspective, but please understand that in this time period, death occurred in the home and people laid in state in the home. And so if the family could afford it, and oftentimes families, the daguerreotypes initially were expensive. And it was something that the upper middle class to upper middle class, I mean, upper class could only afford initially. And if a family could afford it, they might take a photograph of a deceased family member. But that was not considered macabre or unusual in any way because people died at home and they were laid in state at home, like I said. So this was not unusual for the time period. John Whipple actually figured out how to get a telescope hooked up to a daguerreotype, a camera obscura, and took a photograph of the moon. That photograph sold for an astronomical sum at Sotheby's, pun intended. And there's an example of a nude. So that's your nice moon comparison for the day. You'll notice that is, if you've taken an art history class before, which I'm not expecting that you necessarily have, but she is in the position of a reclining odalisque. And so a lot of times, and we'll talk about this, when photographers started to make more artistic images, that they modeled a lot of these images after known paintings as a way of giving credulity to photographs. And now I need to tell you about Henry Fox Talbot, okay? Let me check time real quick. Oh, shoot. How are we on time? Hold on. We're getting, I'm gonna do this really quickly. Okay, I'll try to do this really quickly. Okay, so I need to introduce you to Henry Fox Talbot. Okay, this is Talbot's camera lucida drawing. All right, he messes around with botanical specimens. And then he does this. Okay, so this is Talbot. This is one of your study guide images. All right. Talbot used a camera obscura and he created this image, and it says latticed window with the camera obscura, August 1835. It says, when first made, the squares of glass, about 200 in number, could be counted with the help of a lens. So this is a view of his ancestral home, one of the windows in his ancestral home. Now, what Talbot did was he used a piece of drawing paper. He sensitized that and he put it in a camera obscura. But what he did was he used that piece of drawing paper as a negative. So what Talbot does is he creates a process and he calls them Talbotypes. He also calls them calotypes. Calo means beautiful, type, drawing, beautiful drawings. He calls them calotypes or Talbotypes. He creates a process where he's making images that have a negative. Basically, kind of the same thing that Daguerre did. He's taking a piece of 19th century drawing paper, sensitizing it, putting it in the camera obscura, developing it, but he's using it as a negative. So he can make multiple copies. All right. So technically, he calls it a Talbotype. It has a negative. You can make copies. Now, it's a piece of drawing paper that's a negative. So it's going to give you detail. Like you said, with the help of a little lens, you could count the little panes in the glass. But it's not ever going to be super crisp like a daguerreotype will give you. All right. Socially, historically, he beat Talbot to the punch. He actually did this before. I'm sorry, he beat Daguerre to the punch. Okay. But Talbot did these for his socially, historically, he did it for his own amusement. He was just having fun doing this. He didn't like the way his camera lucida drawing came out, so he started fiddling around with these. But then he set it aside and went on to something else. Now Talbot's British. So when Frenchman Daguerre announces his process, gets ticker tape parades, keys to the city, all this, Talbot loses it. All right. He's like, well, I had this, I did this, so then he announces his process subsequently. Okay. So that's why Daguerre gets credit sort of as the first photograph, but be aware that Talbot was really there ahead of him. Okay. Aesthetically, Talbot types have detail, but because they have drawing paper as their negative, they're never going to be as crisp and detailed as a Daguerre type. So that's a Talbot type. So there's detail there, but it's never going to have quite the crispness of a Daguerre type. And a lot of artists really love the Talbot type. They love that sort of etching or sort of charcoal sort of quality to them. So that one's obviously a little crisper. And there you can see you're definitely getting detail in there. Okay, you definitely do get it. It's just never going to be quite on a par with what a Daguerre type can do. So these are other Talbot examples. So that is a publication that Talbot does called The Pencil of Nature. So he actually does a book with his photographic images in them. And that's the cover of The Pencil of Nature. So, and this is very difficult for you to see in a slide presentation, but what I'm trying to say is that daguerreotypes are much, generally speaking, much crisper, sharper, more detailed. The Talbot types, they can have details, but they tend, generally speaking, to be softer. They tend to have more sort of an artistic quality to them, okay? So that's what the lectures look like. All right, that's what that's basically it. All right. So what I will do now is I will post the slides for this lecture online probably later this afternoon. So certainly you can go back and pull details from the images if you need to. And again, if you have questions or anything, let me know. This particular lecture, because it's our first one, I'm going to post. I will post under important course information on Canvas, okay? For some reason, my battery's running low. I don't know why. Any last minute questions or concerns from anybody?
Just really quick, can we talk real quick about the text? I tried to go on a line with the bookstore to see if they had them available, but for whatever reason, I wasn't able to find that information.
Okay, I strongly suggest that you check, I'm sorry, I'm gonna fiddle with my battery in a minute. I strongly suggest you check like Chegg, CHEGG.com is a really good site. Barnes and Noble often has them, so you can check with that. Amazon might have it, I'm not sure. But a lot of these different places will have them, and you should be able to get them.
Okay, but as far as you know, does the bookstore at City College have them?
They should. There's also, I also put one on reserve in the library.
Right.
But I'll reach out to the bookstore and check with them and
Okay,
see.
thank you.
Yeah, but I always tell my students, shop around a little bit, please, because I find you might be able to get, oh, someone just said they found theirs on Amazon. So you might be able to get them at a better price someplace else. So I always suggest that you shop a little bit in addition to the bookstore. Anybody else? Okay, please, please, please let me know if you have questions, okay? I am here to answer your questions. The only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask me, seriously, all right? So I will see you next Monday at 9:35. But again, until then, if you have any questions or concerns, please email me. Or yeah, until then, email me. All right. All right. Have a good day. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
You too.
you.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank
Yeah, have a good
All right.
one.
Okay. Bye.